Is there an appetite from the party to dig deep down and figure that out? Do they see the need? Joining us now is Christina Greer, a foreign political scientist who studies electoral politics, identity, and immigration in the U.S.
I do.
Let's start at the top. Why aren't there more people applying for the job of running the party?
One, it's a big job. Two, we had some scandals with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and then when Donna Brazile took over, there were some issues there. And so whoever comes in is going to have to not only clean up what has been done in these past few months, possibly years. They're going to have to possibly do an audit about what happened in 2016 and the months and years leading up to 2016. And also they have to provide a vision for the party when a party is out of power, not just in the presidency, but also in Congress by pretty significant numbers.
It seems like there are times when parties just want to tweak, and there are times when parties look really inward to the structure, or what we used to call the system, man.
Right.
So is this one of those moments in your view, or when you look at a party that, as some Clinton aides have repeatedly stressed, that got more votes, maybe they don't need to blow up the whole thing? What do you think?
Well, I think, you know, there's a certain level of arrogance within the Democratic Party, and I think I've been part of that arrogance as well, thinking that, you know, Hillary Clinton was essentially heir apparent in many ways. I mean, I think the extra 2.6 million votes show that the country was responsive to a particular portion of her message, but we can't forget Bernie Sanders really made an impact. And so while so many Democrats are pointing the finger at the civil war that was happening in the Republican Party, I don't think many people really realize just how many Democrats are not satisfied with essentially the centrist moderate candidates that we keep putting up for the presidency, and they wanted someone who was a lot more progressive, a lot more left-leaning, and someone who actually looked like a big D Democrat, which Bernie Sanders in some way represented. Possibly not the packaging was ideal for many Democrats, which then sort of raised a question. What happened to, you know, Martin O'Malley, who could have had a more progressive message, but in a packaging that possibly more widespread Democrats could have understood or appreciated. So I think we need to think about the pipeline on the local, state, and national levels. Why is it that, you know, when it comes to the presidency, either we get sort of people out of nowhere in Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama, or the sort of party faithful and the Clintons, you know, from 92 and 96 and all the way up until the mid-aughts. But also we really need to think about, if we choose someone for the head of the DNC, what is the real vision? Are they going to sort of run after white men in the rural counties and the suburbs, the way sort of Hillary Clinton started to do? Or are they really going to double down and say, we are the party of diversity, we're stronger together, and actually show us who's stronger together?
Democrats have been very critical of the Trump appeals to the way America was, and Make America Great is just a plagiarized slogan from Reagan.
And George Wallace.
And if you go back further. But what does it say? Not that it's the same cultural appeal, I certainly wouldn't suggest that, but with regard to nostalgia, what does it say that Democrats are constantly talking about the Clintons? Today we're hearing about Biden. Howard Dean had run the party before. Does the Democratic Party have to worry that sometimes its implicit political mood seems to be, I love the 90s?
Right. I think, you know, the greatest hits are the 90s, because that's when, you know, things were pretty good for the Democrats to a certain extent. Right? You had a strong president. You know, the economy was booming. But I think we also need to think about real-world economics. So Donald Trump has tapped into something in similar ways that Barack Obama tapped into. It's just the opposite feeling, right? Barack Obama really inspired people with hope and sort of this new idea in a very positive direction that was very inclusive, and sort of thinking about economics, which would be together we can actually rise up, sort of all boats together. Donald Trump tapped into something as well for a large percentage of the population. It's just because of those people you don't have. And so that is a really powerful message that can take us back to the quote-unquote good old days of the 1930s. But if we know anything about the 1930s, the only people who were really benefiting from the 1930s were white men. And so that is a really important message that he's pushing. And so as I've said on this network and many others, you know, if he's trying to dismantle the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Immigration Act and all the sort of progressive politics of LBJ and even Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, he wants to essentially erase the Democratic message and bring it back to sort of the good days when sort of white men were white men. And I think it's a message that clearly resonates. It's a message that resonates with white women as well. And so the Democrats have their work cut out for them in many ways to try and think about how to be an inclusive party, but really tap into a certain level of hope and excitement on an economic level, but also a racialized space as well.
Political scientist Christina Greer, thank you. Very interesting.
Sorry.
Appreciate it. Up next.